My name is Margaret. I am 69 years old. I am a widow. My husband died many years ago when my son Daniel was still very young. From that day, my life changed completely. I did not just lose a husband, I lost safety. I lost direction. And suddenly, I became both mother and father to a little boy who depended on me for everything. I remember the funeral. Daniel stood beside me in a borrowed black suit that was too big for his small frame. The sleeves hung past his wrists, his shoes were scuffed. He held my hand so tightly that I could feel his little fingers trembling. When they lowered the coffin into the ground, he looked up at me with eyes full of questions I could not answer. "Is Papa sleeping?" he whispered. I pulled him close and said nothing, because what could I say that would not break us both? Some nights, when the house was quiet, I sat awake and wondered if I was strong enough. But every morning, when I saw my son's small shoes by the door, I stood up and tried again. After my husband died, money became a constant fear. The bills did not stop. The rent did not pause for grief. Food still needed to be bought. I worked wherever I could. I cleaned houses. I washed clothes by hand. I cooked for families who barely noticed me. Sometimes I worked 3 jobs in a single day. I scrubbed floors until my knees ached. I ironed mountains of clothes until my arms burned. I carried heavy baskets of wet laundry up and down stairs. My back hurt. My hands cracked in winter. The cold water made them bleed sometimes, but I wrapped them in old cloth and kept working. I never complained, not to anyone, not even to myself. At night, I made sure Daniel ate first. I gave him the larger portion, the better piece of bread, the meat if there was any. If food ran out, I told him I was not hungry. I ate while I was cooking, I would say. That was a lie I told many times, so many times that I stopped counting. When he slept, I watched his chest rise and fall. I listened to his soft breathing in the darkness. Sometimes I sat on the floor beside his small bed for hours, just watching, making sure he was safe, making sure he was warm, and I told myself, as long as he breathes peacefully, I can endure anything. Daniel was a quiet child. He did not ask for toys. He did not beg for sweets like other children. When he saw other boys playing with new bicycles or shiny cars, he simply looked away. He did not complain when other children laughed at his old clothes. His shirts were patched, his pants were too short, his shoes had holes that I tried to cover with cardboard, but he never said a word. Once, when he was 7, he came home from school with tears in his eyes. "What happened?" I asked, kneeling down to his level. He shook his head. "Nothing, Mama." But I saw the rip in his shirt. I saw the dirt on his knees. Someone had pushed him, called him names. But he protected me from knowing, because even then, even as a child, he understood that I was carrying enough. When he fell while learning to walk, he reached for me. I held his hands and said, "Don't be afraid, I am here." When he was sick, I stayed awake all night, pressing my forehead to his, whispering prayers into the dark. I wiped his fever with cool cloths. I held him when he shivered. I sang him the same lullaby my mother once sang to me, even when my voice cracked from exhaustion. Years passed. My hair turned gray. My body grew slower. My eyes grew weaker. The mirror showed me lines I did not remember earning. My hands, once smooth, became rough and worn. But my love never weakened, not for a single moment. When Daniel became a man, he worked long days doing physical labor. He carried bricks, he dug trenches, he worked in the sun until his skin burned, he worked in the rain until he shivered, all so we could have a better life. Every evening I waited for the sound of his footsteps. I knew them, the heavy, tired rhythm of his boots on the path. When I heard them, I stood by the window and watched until I saw his figure approaching. When he walked through the door, tired but safe, my heart felt full. I did not want riches. I did not want comfort. My son's presence was enough. His smile, rare as it was, his voice calling, "Mother, I'm home," that was my wealth. Then one evening he sat across from me and said, "Mother, I want to get married." I smiled and nodded. "If that brings you happiness, then I am happy too." And I meant it, every word. But that night I could not sleep. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling. I listened to the silence of the house, because I knew my life was about to change again. I knew that soon his voice would call for someone else first. His hands would hold someone else's. His heart would belong to another. And that was right. That was natural. But it did not make it easier. His wife's name was Emily. She was young, well-dressed, used to a different life. She carried herself with confidence. Her clothes were always clean and pressed. Her hair was always perfectly arranged. She wore perfume that smelled of flowers I could not name. When she came into our home, I welcomed her gently. I cleaned the house until it shined. I prepared the best meal I could afford. I gave her the better room. I moved my few belongings to the smaller space. I said, "This is your home now. Please be comfortable." At first she smiled. She thanked me politely. She held Daniel's hand and looked around with interest. But after a few days I noticed her silence, the way she avoided my eyes, the way her words became sharp and short. When I greeted her in the morning, she barely nodded. When I asked if she needed anything, she turned away. When I tried to help in the kitchen, she said, "I know what I'm doing." Her tone was cold, dismissive. So I stepped back. I spoke less. I moved quietly through the house like a shadow. I told myself, she needs time. She is adjusting. This will pass. But weeks went by and nothing changed. The coldness remained. The distance grew. One evening, Daniel came home exhausted. It had been a long day. I could tell from the way he walked. Dust covered his clothes. His shoulders drooped with fatigue. His face was pale. He sat down heavily at the table. He called out softly, "Emily, may I have some water?" There was no answer. He waited, then called again, a little louder, "Emily?" Still nothing. I heard everything from the next room. The house was small. The walls were thin. I stood up to get him water myself. But then Emily's voice rose in anger, sharp, loud, filled with venom. "It's your mother. She hates me. She watches everything I do." My hands began to shake. I pressed them against my chest to steady myself. Those words were not true. I had never hated her. I had only tried to help, to make her feel welcome. But I stayed silent. What good would defending myself do? Daniel tried to calm her. His voice was gentle, patient. "She is old," he said. "She means no harm. Please live peacefully with her." That night he went to bed hungry. I heard his stomach growl, but he said nothing, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, praying quietly for my son, praying for peace in this house, praying for wisdom, praying for strength. The next morning I heard them whispering. Their voices were low, secretive. I tried not to listen, but the walls were thin. Then Emily said words that froze my blood. words I will never forget. There is an old abandoned warehouse by the river. No one goes there anymore. Take her there. Leave her inside. She won't survive long. I sat very still. I could not move. I could not breathe. For the first time in my life, I felt fear toward my own child. Not fear of him, but fear for what he might do. That day, Daniel did not look at me. He moved through the house like a ghost. He did not eat breakfast. He did not speak. When I tried to catch his eye, he turned away. That night, he said quietly, "Mother, we're going out tomorrow." His voice was flat, empty. I looked into his eyes, and I understood everything. I saw the conflict there, the pain, the shame. The next morning, the air was cold. Winter was coming. The sky was gray. We walked slowly toward the river. Neither of us spoke. I noticed small details, the sound of birds calling to each other, the smell of damp earth, the way Daniel's steps hesitated, how he kept his hands in his pockets, how his shoulders were hunched. I thought about my life, about holding him as a baby, so small, so helpless, about whispering comfort into his ear when he cried, about all the nights I stayed awake so he could sleep, about all the meals I skipped so his belly would be full, about every sacrifice I made without counting. I told myself, if my life ends today, I have no regret. I gave him everything I had. I loved him with everything in me. That is enough. The warehouse stood empty, broken windows, rust on the door, silence everywhere. Weeds grew through cracks in the concrete. The paint had peeled away years ago. Daniel stopped walking. He stood there, frozen. His hands were trembling. I touched his arm and said softly, "When you leave me here, make sure you don't stay too long. The floor looks weak. I don't want anything to happen to you." He stared at me. Tears filled his eyes. They spilled over and ran down his face. "You know?" he whispered. His voice broke. "A mother always knows," I said. He fell to his knees and cried, deep, wrenching sobs that shook his whole body. "I was going to abandon you," he said through his tears. "I was going to leave you here to die, and you were still thinking about me, still protecting me." I placed my hand on his head. I stroked his hair the way I did when he was small. "A mother's love does not end," I said, "even when her heart is breaking." After a long silence, he helped me stand. He held my arm gently. "Let's go home, Mother," he said. When we returned home, Emily was waiting. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "Well?" she asked. Her voice was cold, expectant. Daniel looked at her clearly for the first time. He saw her as she truly was. "Leave," he said. His voice was firm, final. She argued, she shouted, she said terrible things, but he opened the door and said nothing more. He simply stood there, holding it open, waiting. Finally, she left, and the house fell silent. Now, my son and I live quietly again, the way we used to. He prepares my tea each morning, weak, with very little sugar, just the way I like it. He sits with me in the evenings. We don't always talk, but the silence is comfortable now, full of understanding. I am old, my body is tired, my steps are slow, but my heart is at peace. A mother's love asks for nothing. A mother's love never dies. After that day, our house felt different. Not louder, not happier in a loud way, but calmer, more peaceful. For the first time in many months, I slept through the night. No arguments, no slammed doors, no fear hiding inside my chest, just the quiet breathing of my son in the next room, that sound I had listened to for so many years, the most beautiful sound in the world. Daniel began to change slowly, not with big words, but with small actions. Every morning he woke before me. He prepared my tea the way I liked it, weak, with very little sugar. He brought it to me with a gentle smile. When I tried to stand up quickly, he held my arm. "Take your time, Mother," he said. "I am here." Those words sounded familiar. I had said them to him many years ago, when he was learning to walk, when he was afraid. Now he was saying them to me. The circle was complete. Sometimes I saw him sitting alone, staring at the floor. His face was heavy with thought, his eyes distant. One evening he said quietly, "I almost lost you." His voice was barely a whisper. I did not answer. There was nothing more to say. Some lessons come with pain. Some awakenings come too late. But coming back still matters. Choosing right, even after choosing wrong, that matters. Now our days pass slowly. I cook simple meals. Daniel repairs small things around the house, a broken chair, a loose door, a leaking roof. In the evenings, we sit together in silence, not an empty silence, a peaceful one. Sometimes I knit, sometimes he reads, sometimes we just sit, and that is enough. I am old. My body is weak. My hair is completely white now. My hands shake sometimes. My eyes are dim, but my heart is no longer afraid. A mother's love asks for nothing. It does not demand thanks. It does not keep score. It does not count sacrifices. It only hopes that one day it will be understood. If you still have your mother, hold her hand, listen to her voice, look into her eyes, thank her, not with words alone, but with actions, with time, with presence, because one day that voice will become a memory, those hands will be gone, and all you will have left are the moments you chose to share. Make sure they are enough. Thank you for listening to this story. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Story Reading in English channel. Your support helps more stories reach people like you. With every story, our English gets better and our hearts get stronger.